Do you struggle to rest because you feel guilty or unproductive? If you're a high achiever, you probably feel as though you need to be productive all the time, and it's really hard to relax, rest, or slow down. In this episode, we'll explore how reframing rest as productive, yes, rest as productive, they don't seem to go together, but how doing this can actually help you, but how doing this can actually benefit your well-being and your work, along with practical tips to help you do this. So tune in to learn how you can start prioritizing rest and experience the benefits today. This is episode number 142, Reframing Rest as Productive. Welcome to Calmly Coping. My name is Tati Garcia, and I'm a licensed therapist and coach specializing in high-functioning anxiety. I help high achievers overcome anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and burnout so they can feel calm, balanced, and confident from within. Thank you so much for tuning in. The inspiration for this episode came from an email exchange I had with one of my subscribers, Deirdre. So she said that she, quote, always feels like she needs to do all the things, yet she feels behind when she can't get to it. And she also says that she always feels like she needs to be productive. And anytime she has idle time, so like if she's waiting for her son to finish getting dressed, she'll check a couple of emails or do a few things around the house. And she feels like she wants to be as productive as possible and doesn't want to waste any free time. So if you can relate to this, then you are definitely not alone. And I think that this is a belief that many of us can have, that we need to be always productive and any open pockets of time need to be utilized to get something done or check something off the list or check your email or get that task done, because checking things off can feel rewarding. It can feel like this sense of relief, like this weight has been lifted. Okay, I got this done now and I don't need to do it later. And it can also feel as though it is helping us to get closer to our goals, to the things that we want. And it can also feel as though when we are productive, then we kind of earned or can have that reward of the rest and relaxation that comes later on. So the reason why high achievers, specifically people with high functioning anxiety, have a hard time resting is because of this belief that we can feel as though we need to earn rest and relaxation, and this connection between self-worth and productivity and achievement. And so feeling as though we aren't worthy or we're not good enough unless we are achieving more, unless we are more productive, unless we are getting these things done on our list. In addition, there can also be this feeling of stress and anxiety that comes when your schedule or your to-do list is overflowing with things to do. And so, like I mentioned previously, it can relieve some of that stress and it can feel good to get things done and to check them off, because you can feel as though, okay, I'm getting this off of my plate. I don't have to worry about this anymore. I don't have to think about this. It's done. And there's that feeling of relief. So it can be relieving stress and anxiety to actually be productive. So it's kind of paradoxical, because getting things done can relieve stress and anxiety while at the same time, sometimes always being productive and always feeling this pressure like you need to be doing more can create more stress and anxiety. So how do you know the difference, between when you're relieving stress and anxiety and when you are just creating more? It's all about listening to your needs and understanding yourself. So part of that is being realistic with your expectations. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But before I do, first I want to share some of the negative consequences that come when you don't take time for rest. So when you are constantly busy and focused on checking things off of your list and multitasking, or always, checking your email multiple times a day and refreshing the page to see what's new, or whatever other ways you might be spending your time being productive or doing things. When you do not take time for rest, on the extreme end, you can reach a point of burnout. And that is when you just have nothing left to give. So you have given so much, you have worked so much without recharging your own battery, that you've gotten to a point where you've become cynical or resentful towards your job, your workplace, or other people around you. You may start to feel a lack of motivation or desire to get out of bed in the morning or to do things that are important to you. You might start feeling more overwhelmed and anxious and start experiencing things like panic attacks or significant anxiety. And there's so many other signs of burnout, but essentially that's the extreme end of never taking time for rest or not taking the time for rest that you need to. And that can be something that becomes cumulative. So it can build up slowly over time if you are not taking the proper time to rest and recharge and to listen to our natural rhythms that we have as humans, where we naturally have periods where we can push harder and give more. And we also naturally have periods where we need to take a step back and rest and recharge our batteries and recoup and reflect. Another consequence of never taking rest is actually reduced productivity. So first, multitasking is not a thing. So studies actually demonstrate when people are multitasking, they're actually constantly task switching. So they're switching their attention from one task to another, and that is actually taking up more time in the long run. And in addition to that, when you are constantly focused and like, let's say you're sitting at your computer all day or you're doing work all day or whatever you might be doing, and you're not taking a step back to recharge, that's really taxing for your brain, and it's going to be harder to focus. And when it's harder to focus, and it becomes harder to think, and that just results in you being less productive. And so you're actually giving yourself and spacing out so that it's taking more time and energy for you to do things and for you to think as clearly and communicate your thoughts as clearly than if you were to take space to rest and recharge. And not only that, but the negative impacts that it can have on your emotional health and on your relationships. You might notice that you start to become more irritable, more frustrated, more anxious, more stressed when you are not taking time for rest. It might be harder to cope with your emotions and to deal with stress. You might become less resilient to stress and to the things that come up. And this can lead to kind of that moment where it's the straw that broke the camel's back, and it might be one small thing that seems to kind of topple everything over, and you start to feel even worse when really it's just the buildup over time, like I mentioned before, of never taking that proper space for rest and for recharging. I have worked with countless clients. I've interviewed people on this podcast who have experienced that point of burnout where they don't take the time to rest and really are focusing more on giving to others, achieving more at work, working long hours, taking care of family, whatever that might look like. And it's not to say that you need to completely drop all your responsibilities, but when you are pushing harder and harder and overworking and going beyond your limits, I've worked with many clients who that has gotten them to the point of getting in the hospital from such significant anxiety and panic. And so I don't want that to happen for you, because that can be a consequence of neglecting time for rest and for self-care. And if you find that you're at a point where you are feeling really burnt out and are feeling really overwhelmed, then I highly suggest you speak to, whatever the situation is, you speak to your manager, supervisor, professor, whomever it might be, a partner, and really let them know what's going on for you and see if it's possible for you to take a step back, to take some time off, even if it's for a few days, for a week, to look into seeking out the support of a therapist or some other professional that can help you to recover from the place that you are and to not get stuck in that place again. Now that I've talked about the negative consequences of not taking time for rest, let's talk about some obstacles that might come up when you are looking to take more breaks or rest and recharge more, because there can be a lot of resistance that comes up when it comes to actually taking and setting that time aside for yourself. One thing can be guilt. So you might feel guilty and feel as though, I should be doing more. I should be able to be more productive. What's wrong with me that I am feeling so tired and that I can't get all of these things done? That can be guilt, and also feeling some shame that, okay, there's something wrong with me that I can't get all of these things done. When it comes to feeling that guilt or that shame, I think it's important to recognize that these are often things that we have internalized from people in our lives, from societal and cultural beliefs and expectations, that we are only as worthy as the output that we have, and that we're essentially like machines and we just need to be creating and giving and doing more, when that is just not realistic or reflective of reality. So when you notice those emotions come up, recognize that, okay, your emotions are valid. It's not wrong to be feeling that way. And at the same time, they may not necessarily be based on facts. You don't need to feel guilty for taking a break for yourself. And so part of that is about reframing those beliefs that you have when it comes to rest and relaxation. And that's why I'm talking about reframing rest as being productive, because when you can recognize that taking rest and taking a step back actually allows you to be more productive and actually allows you to put your best foot forward, because you are metaphorically filling up your cup. And so you have the best of yourself to give to others and to give back to yourself, then that is going to result in more productivity. It's going to result in more creativity. It's going to result in more fulfillment, rather than constantly running on empty and feeling as though you need to give to others first, and then, the scraps that's left over are going to be what's left for you. Another thing that can come up is there might be fear. And you might experience fear of, well, what if I don't do this thing? Then what's going to happen? We can often go to the worst case scenario when it comes to feeling anxious. And so there can be this justification that, well, because I don't want to miss out on this thing or this opportunity, or because I don't want to get fired from my job, or whatever the fear might be, because I don't want to fail in, this upcoming product launch or whatever it may be, it can feel like a very compelling justification to keep going and to not take time for rest. And so you need to recognize that fear is just trying to protect you and keep you safe. And oftentimes the fears that we have when it comes to not taking time for rest are exaggerated. So we can assume that the worst case scenario is going to happen if we don't take a step back and rest, when oftentimes the worst case scenario doesn't happen. And even if it did happen, you can cope with it and you can manage it. Recognizing when fear is part of the equation. So fear has shown up for me in the past with my business. Let's say I am launching a new course and there's a fear of, well, nobody's going to be interested, nobody's going to sign up. And so that fear might propel me forward into doing more and making sure I'm doing absolutely everything I can to make it the best course and include everything and, make the marketing amazing or whatever else it might be. And within that fear, I'm not taking into consideration that, okay, maybe I need to take a rest and allow myself to recharge so that I can be in the most creative mindset, so that I can actually feel more confident, because I'm taking time to actually reinforce that I deserve rest, which helps to build your self-worth, because the things that you do help and are reflective of your self-worth. So if you are continually neglecting rest, then you are communicating to yourself, well, I don't deserve this, and I'm not worthy enough to have rest. Whereas if you are taking time for rest, you're communicating to yourself like, I deserve this. I'm worthy enough to take time for myself. So all of these things can be helpful to combat that fear and that urge that comes up to keep going, because when you actually break it apart and look at it logically, you can start to realize that taking breaks and taking a step back and resting more is going to allow you to show up more confidently in whatever it is that you're doing and be more productive and be more efficient with your time. So now let's talk about some practical tips for resting. Quickly, before I get into that, if you want a step-by-step challenge that's going to help you to calm your mind when you struggle with overthinking, this is a great way to practice rest and to integrate it into your day. You can get it for free by going to calmlycoping.com/calm. All right, so practical tips for how to take more time for rest and overcome these obstacles that might come up when you think of taking time to rest. So first is setting boundaries. So this can be as simple and as difficult as saying, okay, I'm going to start work at this time and end work at this time. If you want to take it a step further, you can tell yourself, I'm going to start work at this time. I'm going to take a 15-minute break after working for 2 hours, and then I'm going to take a 30-minute to an hour lunch break, and then another 15-minute break after working another few hours, et cetera, et cetera. So, oftentimes we will schedule our meetings, our obligations into our calendar, but it is so easy to forget scheduling in time for self-care. So if you're the kind of person who uses a calendar or planner, I highly suggest scheduling in your time for breaks in advance, because this is going to help you to stick to them and to set these clear boundaries so that you can respect your needs to recharge. So that can look like the kind of breaks that I just mentioned, or it might look different depending on your specific job or depending on what your schedule looks like. But being sure to take time to set these boundaries. That can also look like, there's so many different ways to set boundaries. So you can set boundaries by communicating what times you're available for meetings specifically, and making sure that you are setting time aside for your computer work or whatever kind of other things that you have to do for your solo work. So I like to do different days. So I will set aside different days of the week where I know I'm going to be front facing and meeting with clients, and then other days of the week where I am behind the scenes and I am doing more of the administrative work, the creative work, the solo computer work where I'm not face to face with people. So that helps to prevent like that switching back and forth from one role to the next. And so that I can take the proper time that I need to, since I'm an introvert and sometimes having too many sessions or meetings in a day can be draining. So I can be sure to respect, okay, I know this number of meetings per day is my cap. So I'm going to stick to that, and I'm going to focus on just having client meetings on these days during the week. So looking at things like that can be a helpful way to set boundaries so that you can respect your energy and take time to rest and take a break when you need to. Another way that you can practice rest is by just taking time during the day to do the things that you enjoy. So you don't have to be rigid with expectations and say, well, it's the morning, I have to follow this routine very rigidly, and I'm not allowed to watch TV or do this and that. If you want to, let's say, watch TV when you're having your breakfast or getting ready for work, and it's going to help you to feel in a better mood, it's going to help you to feel recharged, then by all means do it. So thinking of, rather than being in a place of shoulds and like, well, in the morning, I should be listening to a podcast about my business so that I can further my knowledge and use this time to the most advantage. If you're doing that and you're overloading yourself and doing way too much, then it's not going to be beneficial. So seeing if you can listen to what is it that you really want and need, while at the same time, so this is when it's important to keep in mind balance, while at the same time having some consistency when it comes to the habits that are important to you. So let's say that is making time to work out a few times a week, or making time to meditate or journal, or, being sure that you're not completely letting those healthy habits fall to the wayside. So having that balance between doing those things consistently that are going to help you feel better and put you in a good mood and that you really enjoy and can indulge in, and also being consistent with the healthy habits that are going to ensure that you're taking care of yourself. So I could honestly go on and on about this topic. I have an entire phase on this topic on how to create improved work-life balance and how to manage your energy properly, how to set boundaries, how to stop procrastinating so that you can get more work done in less time in my signature program for high achievers with high functioning anxiety, calm, balanced, and confident, that I'm going to be opening the doors to very soon. So if you are checking this out live, then definitely keep an eye out. I'm going to be speaking more about it in upcoming episodes. And if you want to learn more about it, you can also get on my email list by signing up for that Calm Challenge below. And then you'll be put on my email list so that you can get my notifications and updates about it. So I want to hear from you. What is it that helps you to rest and recharge? And how can you reframe rest as productive? So if you want to continue the conversation, you can leave me a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or you can join us in our free Facebook community, Calmly Coping, by going to calmlycoping.com/group and let us know your thoughts there. While you wait for next week's episode, I have other episodes about decreasing anxiety, adopting a healthy mindset, and managing your time and energy. So be sure to check out these episodes here. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and until next time, be calm.